Ball from Drums and Rums, where the backbeats meets the spirits, and I'm back in the hosting seat here, jumping back into the podcast here, and I wanted to cover drummers for International Women's Month or Women's History Month, and I wanted to find out some questions about female drummers. And what do you do when you want to find out and ask questions and get feedback? You go to Reddit. Ask the people of Reddit, and they delivered. And delivered they did. So I posed a question and posted it was, which female drummer influenced you or you're a fan of? And the responses were amazing. A lot of people chimed in. A lot of people voiced their thoughts. Certain drummers really influence, or certain drummers they follow on YouTube or just musically. But I took at least culled down the top 10 based on who the upvotes for the names that were mentioned. And of course, I'll cover a couple of other names at the end here. So, but first up was resounding at the top of the upvote list was Anika Nilles. She's a German drummer, composer, solo musician, and music educator. She launched her career on YouTube during the early 2010s. She's also a Drumeo alum. So if you've seen her on YouTube, you've seen her on Drumeo. She's part of the Drumeo family there. She provides some classes. She's done some videos. So definitely you definitely can't miss finding her on YouTube or the internet. So she's won of multiple awards as one of the finest drummers that exploded in the scene in 2014. She is a proof that it's never too late to start. She didn't take up the sticks professionally until she turned 26, but she's never looked back since. Boasting over 23 million views on social media platforms, performing her original music, she appears as one of the most influential modern drummer artists of the 21st century. 23 million views. That's just amazing. So obviously she's got people that are really interested in what she does. Playing with sophistication, style, and a musical finesse that is rarely witnessed behind the drums, she's an inspiration to women the world over in what has been a traditionally male-dominated industry. Fierce and determined, she pours over her kit, creating melodies through rhythmic complexities that are normally sit within other sections of the band. This is no machine kept the beat. This is percussive instrument on a whole new level. That caught the attention of legendary Grammy-winning artist Jeff Beck, who recently passed away, who chose her for his last world tour in 2020. So it's unfortunate timing of his passing. Besides her musical career, Anika is passionate about education as well. She's part of the department chief at Germany's Popacadium, maybe saying that wrong, and is writing columns on a regular basis for Drums and Percussion magazine. Her work as an author includes articles on Drum magazine in the US and Rhythm in the UK, and released her first educational book, Pad Book, along with Alfred Music in 2020. Influences. Anika is influenced by, like a lot of drummers, male or female, Toto's member and career session drummer Jeff Porcaro is one of her primary influences. Others include Carter Beauford, Jojo Mayer, Sheryl Crow, Joe Satriani, Dave Matthews Band, Joss Stone, Stanton Moore, and Prince. So again, it's not just drummer influenced her style and her music taste. It's other musicians like guitarists as well, like Joe Satriani. So a lot of people, that was a top upvote there for Anika. So definitely find it. She's amazing. Next top vote here was Meg White. Now, Meg White, there's a lot of debate over Meg's drumming and her style and so forth. But if you don't know who Meg White is, she's an American former musician and singer, best known as a drummer of the duo The White Stripes. She's credited as one of the key artists in the garage rock revival of the 2000s and has been nominated for various awards as part of the White Stripes, including winning 4 Grammys. 4 Grammys, okay? She must be doing something right, guys, if she's won 4 Grammys. There's so much debate, as I mentioned, or discussion about Meg's drumming, probably more than any other debate of a drummer than the opposite sex. So I know there's always drummer debates and, guys. And, again, there's always this big debate over Meg's drumming, that it was the perfect drumming style for that music, as has been mentioned. Even Dave Grohl, again, very famed musician, drummer of the Foo Fighters, praised White's drumming, stating in an interview that she was, in quote, one of my favorite fucking drummers of all time. Like, nobody fucking plays the drums like that. Okay, so if you respect Dave Grohl, and if Dave Grohl's going to go out there and say that, then let's get over this whole debate here. And obviously, most recently, there was an article, and I even saw it posted on Facebook. And in response to negative consensus, Jack White stated Meg's drumming to be, in quote, best part of this band and called her a strong female presence in rock and roll. He called her detractors sexist. So there you go. So let's end it, get over it. And she's not even performing it. The third person who really received the most upvotes was Cindy Blackman. Now, she was born into a music family. Her mother and grandmother were classical musicians, and her uncle was a vibist. What's a vibist? Let somebody plays the vibraphone. Pretty simple, but it's kind of a cool word. When Cindy was a child, her mother took her to classical concerts. So again, very influenced at an early age into music, classical music too. Great to grow up in a household like that. So kudos to her family. So Cindy's introduction to the drums happened at the age of 7 in her hometown of Yellow Springs, Ohio. At a pool party at a friend's house, she saw a drum set and began playing them. She said, just looking at them struck something in my core, and it was something completely set me right from the second I saw them. And then when I hit them, it was like, wow, that's me. Soon after, Blackman began playing in the school band and persuaded her parents to get her a toy drum. So she started off, got her set a little drum kit, and then started playing. Again, that's, as you know, trying to convince your parents to buy you a drum set, which is one of the loudest instruments, is always a tough thing. So she attended the Hart School of Music in Hartford, Connecticut, and then she continued her education with her study in Boston at the Berklee College of Music with Alan Dawson, who had also taught Tony Williams, an inspiration for Cindy. In 1993, when after she's gone to school, she's continued her education, played live in New York, and just cutting her teeth in the scene. In '93, Blackman had an opportunity to work with Lenny Kravitz, which mostly everybody probably knows her from playing with Lenny Kravitz in the infamous videos, Where Are You Gonna Go My Way with Lenny Kravitz. From New York, Blackman talked over the phone with Kravitz in LA and played drums for him as he listened. Lenny Kravitz immediately asked Blackman to fly out to LA. She stayed for 2 weeks, including shooting the video for Are You Gonna Go My Way. She would go on to have 18 years as Lenny Kravitz touring drummer. That's pretty impressive. Cindy Blackman's is a rare as a female jazz percussionist. In the past, there were a lot of stigma touched upon women playing certain instruments, Blackman says. Any woman or anyone facing race prejudice, weight prejudice, hair prejudice, if you let somebody stop you because of their opinions, then your only thing you're doing is hurting yourself. I don't want to give somebody that power over me. That is very empowering, right? Screw anyone else that they say. You do what you do, you, right? So kudos to Cindy. Now, again, I didn't know that she also had married Carlos Santana more recently than I thought she'd been married longer than that. But anyway, so that's a whole nother story. But yeah, so Cindy Blackman. I remember watching all the Lenny Kravitz videos there and all of that. So very powerful drummer. If you ever seen that video, if not, go check that out. Next one was probably had had really set a lot of drummers, a lot of women, a lot of girls into wanting to play drums because they saw him how long ago. Karen Carpenter. She was a singer and a drummer who formed half of the sibling duo, the Carpenters, alongside her older brother Richard. She first became fascinated with the drums after joining her high school marching band to get out of gym class. That's pretty funny. She reportedly persuaded the band director to let her switch from glockenspiel to the drums, despite concerns that girls don't play drums. In the early years of the duo, Karen often performed behind the drums and sang at the same time. But this was later advised to give up the drums she loved so much to sing at the front, particularly on ballads. Her drumming skills were praised by famous drummers such as Hal Blaine, Cubby O'Brien, and Buddy Rich, among others. Okay, if you're getting praise from Buddy Rich, then yes, you're doing something right. And I mean, look, again, I say that and I think about it. You don't need somebody else's affirmation, but again, it's good to know that other people that are seen in that industry there. But again, you don't need somebody's affirmation to tell you you're doing the right thing. You just do whatever you feel like you're doing. Unfortunately, at the age of 32, Carpenter died of a heart failure due to complications from anorexic nervosa, which was little known outside the celebrity circles at the time, and her death led to increased visibility and awareness on this eating disorders. So it's unfortunate. Again, we still live in this world of you got to be a certain size, you got to look a certain way, and all those keep up with it, and that's very unfortunate in her passing there. But I know Karen Carpenter's name comes up a lot of times in drummers who have grown up maybe in the 60s and 70s and 80s. I looked and mentioned her as one of the inspirations. The first time of seeing a girl play drums. Next was Sheila Cecilia Escovedo, or also known as Sheila E, which most people know of her from her solo hit Glamorous Life in the 80s, but as Prince's drummer as well. Again, I grew up in the 80s. I remember exactly those two references as being that hit song as well as playing with Prince. Sheila grew up in a musical family as well. Both her father and uncles were all musicians, as well as Tito Puente was her godfather. So that's some pretty good company. You grew up again. If you grew up around with a musical family, most likely you're probably going to be playing music. She's also the niece of Javier Escovedo, the founder of seminal San Diego punk act The Zeros. Another uncle, Mario Escovedo, fronted long-running indie rockers The Dragons. She also is the niece of Coke Escovedo, who was in Santana and then formed the band Azteca. And even Nicole Richie is Sheila E.'s biological niece, the daughter of Sheila E.'s musician brother, Peter Michael Escovedo. Bet you didn't know that. By her early 20s, she had already played with George Duke, Lionel Richie, Marvin Gaye, Herbie Hancock, and Diana Ross. That is a pretty impressive resume at such a young age. Her career in the mid-70s as a percussionist for the George Duke Band as well. After separation from the group in '83, Sheila began a solo career, starting with the release of her debut album in 1984, which included her biggest hit song, The Glamorous Life. Also recently, within the last year, Sheila E. has also announced that she's making a biopic about her relationship with Prince. So again, if you grew up in the 80s, you probably remember seeing Sheila E in a lot of videos. Obviously, as you know, Prince is very particular about musicians and only the best. So she's awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you please, Sheila E.
Another name that came up also from the Redditors was most people probably, if you're a drummer and you watch a lot of YouTube, you probably know this name, but if not, is Emmanuelle Caplette. Emmanuelle made her debut at 9 years old when she joined a local drum and bugle corps. For 8 years, she played snare with different corps in Quebec. During this time, she won many awards, including first place at the Provincial Individuals Championship in Quebec 4 consecutive years in a row. Noted for her incredible hand technique and speed, but also the smile behind the kit, which is obvious when her book is called Smile Your Drumming. So it makes sense. She's also a Drumeo alum as well. So again, if you're not familiar with Emmanuelle, go ahead and check out Google, search for her on YouTube, check it out in Drumeo and so forth. Also, another Drumeo alum is Sara Thawer. And she's a drummer, vocalist based in Los Angeles, California, originally from Toronto. And she started playing drums at 2 years old, and her first stage performance was at 5. Sara works with different artists and musicians, as well as solo and with her own band. She's been known for her versatility playing a wide range of genres from jazz and fusion to Indian, world funk, R&B, and hip hop. Sara has performed and worked with various artists including Teyana Taylor, Jacob Collier, Steve Vai, John Baptiste, Sheila E., George Watsky, Charlotte Day Wilson, Tegan and Sarah, and Broken Social Scene. She's also played for composer Ludwig Göransson for the 2022 Disney and Pixar movie Turning Red. Sara has performed with Late Night with Seth Meyers and then a Late Night show with Stephen Colbert. So you've probably seen her on the show there, which I know Seth Meyers does feature a lot of drummers. Has had a lot of drummers come on during that particular week of drummers references. And as I mentioned, she's also a Drumeo alum as well too. So definitely check out Drumeo. I mean, we've had Jared Falk on the show very early on in the podcast, and so he's had a lot of great drummers. He had a lot of great women drummers that are on the show very early on, so forth. It goes many years back. I wasn't as familiar with, and again, this is the great thing about sharing information and learning more and being open, is this name, Janet Weiss. Now, she's an American rock drummer, best known as the former member of Sleater-Kinney and a current member of Quasi. She was a self-taught drummer, and Weiss learned her technique by watching the drummers at innumerable live shows and studying rock and punk, like with the likes of John Bonham and Topper Headed. So again, as a drummer I wasn't aware of, and I definitely doing this episode and research, I started Googling and learning more about these drummers, which is a really cool way for me to learn more about things. And this is what we do, right? We try to do this podcast for you to learn and listen to the show, learn more things about people you may not have heard of, even though the internet might be a big thing. Exactly, the internet's a huge thing.
Janet W. and Sara L. are up next.
Drum battle, old school.
Drum battle, old school. Enjoy, everybody. Thanks for coming out, everyone.
Maybe the nerdiest thing I've ever done.
The next one, again, another Redditors that really liked this one was Evelyn Glennie, or also known as Dame Evelyn Elizabeth Ann Glennie. The indigenous musical traditions of Northeast Scotland were important in her development as a musician. Glennie has been profoundly deaf since the age of 12, starting to lose her hearing at the age of 8. But this does not inhibit her ability to perform. She regularly plays barefoot during live performances and studio recordings to feel the music. Glennie contends that deafness is largely misunderstood by the public. She explains that she's taught herself to hear parts of her body other than her ears. On her website, Glennie published Hearing Essay, in which she discusses her condition. Glennie also discusses how she feels music in different parts of her body in the TED Talk, How to Truly Listen, published in 2003. And a collection of her speeches and writings are published in her book, Listen World. Glennie has been featured on Icelandic singer Björk's album, performing on the debut My Spine. She co-composed Oxygen and collaborated with many other musicians, including former Genesis guitarist Steve Hackett, Bella Fleck, Bobby McFerrin, the King's Sisters, and Kodo. Again, here's another name I didn't know unless I found out from thank you to the Redditors about this. Again, she's Scottish, which is cool, so I definitely want to learn more about her on that. Obviously, if you listen to the podcast, you know that I'm Scottish too.
Great musician like Evelyn Glennie to play your trash cans.
Stand back, please.
Whoa! Wow! What a sound! That was the grouchiest music I've ever heard.
So can she play in the Grouchketeer band?
Playing it, I hope she never stops.
Oh, Oscar, thank you.
Also on the top 10 most upvoted was Sara Lund. Sara started playing drums in a school band and got her first drum set when she was 14. She played drums in bands ever since. She's entirely self-taught other than school band. She's been called one of the most unconventional, inventive, original drummers of the past 20 years. Again, like I said, here's another name I just didn't know. And I say it all the time. It's not that I've been steering away from women drummers. It's just, again, there's just so many drummers. There's so much music. Just like there's so many rums. I don't know all of the rums out there. Sara started playing drums and at the age of 12, as I mentioned, inspired by watching her older brother play in a local band when they grew up in Indiana. And then they moved to Olympia, Washington, briefly as a child in the mid-'80s, and then back again as an adult in '91. Sara started playing drums in the school band and was self-taught, and this talented drummer even got her first drum set when she was 14. Now, Sara currently lives in Portland and also has a master's degree in library science from the University of Washington and a BA in liberal arts from the Evergreen State College. So again, it's great to have education that goes behind being music. So after honing her skills and playing drums in various high school bands, she joined Unwound in 1992. Just as the band was beginning to gain a mass following, Sara Lund quickly established herself as an integral part of Unwound's sound. Her inventive drumming style helping to create the band's unique blend of punk, post-hardcore, and experimental noise rock. Like I said, another drummer that I didn't know, I've just learned more about by asking. Thank you to the Redditors, the people of Reddit, who are passing this information along here. So a couple other names there that mentioned that are also on this list here. I didn't forget. I know there's a whole lot of other female women drummers that are out there, such as Serini Kawaguchi. Again, I think she's also been on Drumeo too. She's been all over YouTube. Stella Mozgawa, Mo Tucker, Taylor Gordon, better known as the Pocket Queen, Ruth Underwood, Terry Lynn Carrington, Carla Azar, Christina Rybulbladchenko, Jen Ledger from Skillet, now the drummer for Maximum the Hormone, Georgia Hubley, Hannah Welton, Maytal Cohen, Gina Schock of the Go-Go's. So again, these are just some of the women drummers. I asked the people, great people of Reddit in the drum forum there, and I said, who are you most influenced by, or who is your favorite female drummer? And this is it. So again, go to Reddit, search for that thread there. I had a great response, and it just felt like there was a lot of great conversation, a lot of great talk there about women who have either inspired drummers or other women drummers to get into drumming or follow or watch or listen. So again, this was all part of, again, awareness. I wanted to do an episode here of female drummers and female drummers that I learned a little bit more about. And for you, hopefully y'all had also learned a little bit more about some of those drummers that I maybe then didn't know about, or maybe you did. Maybe you do know some of those drummers that I didn't know about. But anyway, I wanted to again take that episode here and recognize for Women's History Month some of the top women drummers that are out there kicking ass and rocking. And of course, this ranges from all sorts of genres that we just mentioned here that they're all a part of. And again, I really dig music as a whole, and anyone who plays the drums, whether it's guy or girl, just keep on rocking. So let me know what you think in the comments there over in our posting on Instagram. What your thoughts on? Did I miss somebody, or did the people of Reddit miss it? Or go over to the post there on Reddit and drop a comment there in that thread there. Again, I thank you all for tuning in for our recognition of Women's History Month or Women's International Month, and for our drummers that are out there as by the Redditors comments on my post. Appreciate it all. Y'all have a great day. Cheers, y'all.